Our coverage begins with the news we're getting from inside of Iran. We turn to Irshad Alajani, who's with the France 24 Observers, our citizen journalist and fact-checking website. Irshad, you've managed this Tuesday to get through to Iran.
Yeah, we could contact. It's very rare. The connections are scarce, and we can have people who has access to Starlink, which is expensive kind of connection, internet connection for the Iranians. And we know that jam is in place also by the Iranian regime and try to even jam the Starlink connections. However, we could watch and verify in last couple of hours some videos.
Some that are too graphic to show here.
Too graphic to show here that strongly suggest summary executions are taking place or have taken place in Iran. These videos, multiple protesters are seen lying on the ground with gunshot wounds on the temple, to the temple. Based on the visible cause of this, the blood patterns around the bodies, and the position in which the bodies they were left, our analysis indicates that they were likely killed in a summary executions. We have also spoken to an eyewitness whose identity cannot be disclosed for the security reason, obviously. Due to the source professional background, this source is able to identify the causes of death. This source told us that my sister was killed in the same manner by a shot to the temple.
And just to be clear, this is without any kind of trial or anything. This is a extrajudicial summary execution.
Exactly. There are, in the videos, if I want to describe a little bit, there are the bodies lying on the ground. We can see the blood around their heads and the visible shotgun wounds into their temple. And our source, in this source that managed to identify her sister in a morgue, this source says that the family had to examine more than 400 bodies in a single morgue in Tehran to finally locate her remains. The source says that many of the bodies that they have to see to identify the
Did
source's
they specify
sister.
when this happened?
It was the identification happened yesterday, but they don't know exactly when this summary executions taken place because they didn't. They had no information of the sister for a couple of hours. What we know that they had to go over 400 bodies lying on the ground in a single morgue in Tehran that finally find the body of the source, our source sister body. And this source indicate that lots of these bodies had gunshot wounds to the head.
All right. Joining us from London is Alp Toker, director of the monitoring group NetBlocks. Thank you for being with us here on France 24. You heard Irshad there saying that in parts we're now better able to get through to Iran. Irshad, you were describing in some instances that it was talking on landlines, but of course that comes with risks, those calls easier to monitor. What have you found this Tuesday, Alp Toker?
Right, so we've been tracking the internet shutdown since early on in the protests, and we're now around the 120-hour mark, and the incident is ongoing. We did see a slight improvement in the overall communication situation, simply because some landline calls can now make it out of the country, but that doesn't mean that the internet situation has changed, and the shutdown is now ongoing into its sixth day. So the situation remains very severe.
Remains very severe. It's also, according to analysis, quite sophisticated compared to what we've seen in the past, even more sophisticated than in 2022.
Well, right. In a sense, it is more sophisticated insofar as it's harder to work around. In previous incidents, there was a possibility of using a VPN or a tunnel and basically hopping through the network until you reach the outside world. This time, the restriction is far more extensive. So you're looking at almost a complete removal of that connectivity, which means that you can't really use the existing lines to communicate to the outside. So you're really left with no option but to use alternative mechanisms if available at all.
You talk about the concept of a kill switch. Can you explain how Iran is using that?
Well, a kill switch is something that has been used in a figurative sense for internet shutdowns and disruptions by governments. But I think that when we're looking at the situation in Iran now, what we're seeing has truly become a kill switch scenario because authorities have refined their approach to internet shutdowns. In this case, we saw a very rapid ability to shut off all networks within the country on the 8th of January. So this is a centralized mechanism designed to limit and control all access to internet connectivity within a country.
You heard Irshad talking about Starlink. It's a satellite service, so it's possible to jam it like any satellite service?
Right, so Starlink has been useful, and people do have these terminals when they've been able to get hold of them. But Starlink can be jammed like most satellite systems. In fact, what is being seen here is quite similar to what's been tracked in Ukraine, when Russia started jamming Ukrainian Starlink terminals to prevent their use on the front line. And it appears very much that a similar system, if not identical system, may be in use now, and it possibly even carried over from Russia to Iran. And that means that it's much more difficult to use these terminals, but they do still work. And that means that they do provide a trickle of vital information about what's happening.
Irshad Alajani, there's what the authorities are actually actively doing to shut down the internet. And then there's statements they put out. 24 hours ago, you were saying, wondering aloud, how do, for instance, the equivalent of Uber drivers work if the entire internet is shut down? You're saying they're able to work but not use chats? Is that it? Or
yeah, that's we have a little bit update. If since this morning that authorities have restored a very limited unrestricted form of internal internet connection in Iran. That means people can access only the Iranian-based websites or application with no connection to the outside world. For many years, Iran's regime spent millions of dollars to develop Iranian version of WhatsApp and Telegram, designed to operate in this situation, but under control of the security security services of Iran. Yet even these domestic platforms who are under control and surveillance of the security system are not available. Even further that, our sources also confirm that the Iranian websites have been ordered to disable any chat or comment functions on their apps or on their websites. If a site or application allows users to communicate or even left a comment, they have been ordered to shut down that function. For example, in this website, it's the Iranian equivalent of Amazon. Its name is Digicala. And they say due to the security orders, we have disabled chat function. This is a sports website, as you see in the images. And they say that due to security orders, we have disabled commenting functions. So the Iranian regime appear deeply fearful of any kind of communication between the Iranians and with the outside world, that they even cut the commenting and messaging app function inside the other apps.
So, Alp Toker, what do you do if you're a grassroots activist, you're trying to organize a protest movement with everything that's just been described? How do you go about it? Carrier pigeon, walkie-talkie? What's the way to do it?
So it's a very challenging environment. And you also have to be aware about safety, because some of these approaches can get you in the crosshairs in terms of being a target Satellites, for example, can be triangulated. And if you use a tunnel, there's a risk that that can be tracked online as well, even if you're on the national internet that we were just talking about there. So part of the approach is to have a good offline strategy, which is basically sneakernet, being able to carry around and document incidents that might have happened through traditional means, USB sticks, if you need to do that, especially if you're a journalist and you do that safely. But also to have your own digital preparedness toolkits. If you need a VPN for times when there's a partial disruption, then have that prepared. And if you are ready to take that risk with that satellite terminal, then make sure you keep it somewhere safe and know how to use it when you need it.
Ershad Alajani?
Yeah, I have a question for you, and this question comes from Iran. It's not my question. And people are afraid in Iran, and they want to know for how long economically and logistically it is possible for the Iranian regime to continue this internet blackout. Is it possible that they continue, I don't know, forever or for months, for a year? That's I think, one of the main concerns of Iranians now inside Iran.
Alp Toker?
Right. So we have a basic assessment of what the economic impact may be so far, and it's on the order of several hundred million euros. So this is a significant economic impact, but it's not a death blow in itself. Technically speaking, the regime does have the capability to implement an extended internet shutdown. It's something we've seen before, 2019, when we had the multi-week shutdown. It had a one-week core and then continued for several more days in various regions and as partial filtering, which means that there is a real prospect of a continued disruption. There is also the possibility that authorities might choose to bring in perhaps a curfew-style pattern, which would allow businesses and business activities to operate to a degree during the day, and then service would be cut back in the evenings. And there has been some precedent for that, again, in the provinces, but it's not something we've seen at national scale. So it's something to look out for as a middle ground that the government may attempt.
Quick final question for you, Alp Toker. Is this the longest you've seen such a shutdown when you think to other places that have seen big internet shutdowns? I know places like Kashmir, they slowed the internet for more than a year, but this kind of drastic shutdown?
Yeah, I mean, this one is pretty bad when you're looking at national scale internet shutdowns around the world. Iran has actually, it holds its own record in terms of being a multi-week shutdown in 2019. But if we set aside some of the regional ones, like, say, Kashmir or Myanmar, and we look at the national incidents, then you've really got Sudan, which stands out as basically on the order of a month of total or near total internet shutdown. And I think that Sudan also carries some similarity to the situation in Iran, just in terms of the fact that that shutdown was used to mask violence, atrocities against civilians who were protesting for basic freedoms. So that's the real concern here, is that as the duration of that internet shutdown, that telecom shutdown continues, more and more lives are lost in that digital darkness.
Alp Toker, so many thanks for joining us from London. Well, for more, let's go to Washington and correspondent Fraser Jackson. Fraser, you've just heard our guest there describe the pitfalls of protesting, of braving bullets, of even trying to get the message out. It's risky to be out in the streets right now, and yet cheerleading, you might say, for more protests was the President of the United States a while earlier.
Yeah, Donald Trump, of course, since these protests began, said that if protesters are killed, then he would intervene. And the reports of casualties now and protesters killed are really spiraling. We've heard reports of hundreds of people into the thousands now. One source even telling CBS News that it could be as high as 20,000. So reports at the moment varying drastically, but Donald Trump seemingly carrying through with his word. We know that he is going to be briefed by his National Security Council team on Tuesday about the options at his disposal. And the president tweeted on his Truth Social platform earlier in the day his support for Iran's protesters, saying, "Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions. sanctions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. Make Iran great again. Now, of course, that's referencing an outreach effort from the Iranian regime that took place on Saturday to the US establishment. Donald Trump said that he was going to be looking into setting up a meeting with the Iranians when we heard from him on Sunday. But 2 days later, it seems that that effort has now fallen flat, and Donald Trump is seemingly ready to go ahead with some form of strike on the Iranians, although it could take another couple of days before that comes to fruition.
We're getting a word from that Qatar's prime minister has been on the phone with Iranian authorities, trying to keep the back channel discussions going. What does Donald Trump mean when he says help is on the way?
Well, there's a whole kind of suite of options that are at Donald Trump's fingertips, really. The main one, really, of course, is military strikes, which could target military installations, government buildings, anything that he thinks will help bolster the Iranian protesters' efforts in terms of stopping the Iranian officials from being able to carry out intelligence gathering or their crackdowns. But of course, there's also economic levers at his fingertips as well. We've already seen that he's going to slap a 25% tariff on any country that is doing business with Iran. That notably is going to massively impact China. There's also a cyber option that he could take, numerous cyber options. Think back to 2010, and that's Stuxnet virus, which targeted the Natanz nuclear facility and caused their nuclear centrifuges to tear itself apart. So that was a covert action that was taken against the Iranian regime. So there are a suite of options available there. And then, of course, as we've heard, he could also help try to get the internet back on in Iran. He said he was going to be talking to Elon Musk and to use his Starlink network. But of course, they have been prone to jamming, as we've also just heard. I think it's worth pointing out, Francois, that we heard recently from Senator Lindsey Graham, an Iran hawk and somebody who was with the president over the weekend in Mar-a-Lago when he gave those remarks about Iran and was cheerleading the president. In a long post on Twitter, Lindsey Graham said, "A massive wave of military, cyber and psychological attacks is the meat and bones of help is on the way." So a bit of an insight there from Lindsey Graham as to what the US's plan could be going forward.
Fraser Jackson reporting live there from Washington. Many thanks for that update. I want to thank as well Ershad Alajani. There's more on what you found on The Observer's, the France 24's website.